NFL Live is presented by KFC.
This team has too much talent to be putting up 0 points in the National Football League.
Nobody's happy over there on the Vikings side.
The relationship between those two doesn't seem to work. You can feel the tension between Zimmer and his offensive coordinator, and it's starting to show on the film.
Apparently so. Hello, everybody. Wendy next, Dan Graziano, Tim Hasselbeck, and Coach John Fox. And you guessed it, we'll start with some developing news out of Minnesota. After what can only be described as an ugly performance last night, the Vikings have fired offensive coordinator John DeFilippo. Kevin Stefanski was named the interim OC. He will take over play-calling duties effective immediately. And despite that very, very big deal to Kirk Cousins in the offseason and plenty of firepower at skill positions, the Vikings rank 17th in the league in total offense. And just watching last night, there were times you really could almost feel that tension on the sideline through the television. So, Coach, any surprise on your end that this move came today?
Really not at all. I think even coming out of last week, and, you know, Mike Zimmer, the head coach, wants to run the ball more. And, you know, I think kind of basically explained that pretty precisely, I think. And, you know, they only had 21 rush attempts. Their opponent had rushed the ball 42 times. And, you know, I just think it wasn't mixing very well. And so I think Mike made a change.
Coach, I mean, Tim, if you know the head coach wants to run the ball more and we don't see that substantially, is this the fault of the offensive coordinator at this point?
Well, listen, I mean, chain of command is pretty simple. If a head coach tells you to run the ball more, you run the ball. If he says, listen, you know, coach mentioned the 20-something rushes. If he says, listen, you need to run it 25 times, you need to run it 30 times, as the play caller, you call that many runs. I mean, look, you reference how many times Seattle ran it. It's clear Seattle wants to run the football. They call run plays. And I think sometimes there's a challenge especially when you're not the head coach and you have aspirations of being a head coach to try to, you know, perform at a level where it gets people's, you know, attention in terms of what you're doing as a play caller, especially on offense, in order to I guess, you know, kind of put yourself in a position to become a head coach. I mean, let's face it, we talk about these guys that are getting head coaching jobs, and everyone's saying, you need to find the next Sean McVay, you need to find the next Matt Nagy. And so if you are a younger play caller in the NFL, what is your natural inclination going to be? Is going to be to try to prove that you're one of those guys. But if you're the head coach and you don't feel like that's the right recipe for winning, then it's not a good match. Well, and I think these guys probably should have figured that out prior to hiring John DeFilippo.
Even Josh McDaniels, not a head coach, but he's one of those guys, and he's certainly a name that's bantered about, doesn't like to run the football a whole lot. And John DeFilippo, a name we have heard in the head coaching mix from time to time.
Well, yeah, but I mean, not to be, you know, funny about this, but this is not going to help. I mean, obviously, you get fired in Week 15 as a coordinator. I mean, not to say no one will talk to him, but it seems to make it less likely that he would be in that mix. And, you know, this gets to the issue, honestly, of the candidate pool, and we'll be talking about this a lot over the next couple of weeks when teams do start to make these changes. Where are you going to go for your next head coach if you do want to make a change? This is a guy who was thought of in some circles as kind of a hot name. He doesn't even make it through one season as Vikings offensive coordinator. It gets to the issue of who ultimately is going to end up getting these head coaching jobs when they inevitably do come open here in the next few weeks.
Well, I think Tim makes a good point. I mean, this clearly just was a apples and oranges kind of thing, probably from the outset, and it's unfortunate it got to this point.
I would just say this, is that when Minnesota was hiring an offensive coordinator, you were walking into an awesome situation, in my opinion. I mean, now, there certainly were going to be high expectations because of how far they got in the postseason last year, but you were walking onto a team that, you know, had a quarterback that, in my estimation, can play at a starter level. You have two outstanding wide receivers. You have a tremendous tight end. You've got a legitimate back. I mean, you're walking into a group that has talent. Now, the offensive line and some of the challenges you have there, and especially with the loss of Tony Sparano, you know, that was going to present some challenges. But this was a situation where I think in many regards you were kind of set up to succeed.
And they might have done too much, though. I mean, they have Kevin Stefanski, who elevates to the offensive coordinator today, was on their staff. Pat Shurmur tried to hire him to be the OC in New York. They blocked him. So obviously, it's a guy they thought highly of as a coach. And they bring in another coach from the outside to do it. You wonder if maybe they should have giving it to Stefanski in the first place.
Yeah, there is that old, if it's not broken, don't fix it adage. Let's take a look at what was broken last night, at least on the Vikings side of things. It was the Seahawks and Vikings, and we want to give Seattle credit. And this is 6 seconds before halftime. Russell Wilson starts to roll right, slips, gets turned around, and this really un-Russell Wilson likes. He knows better than that, Coach.
Yeah, no doubt. You don't want to be turning the ball over in the red area. And look, you're a run team first. You got a quarterback that's athletic. You just can't be making mistakes like this. And Russell knows that. Russell knew that more than anybody in the stadium.
No question. Let's move to the fourth quarter now. Vikings trail 6-0. It's a 1st and 10. Here's Kirk Cousins. Stephon Diggs comes down with the ball. He takes a hit, though, as he makes the catch, a 48-yard gain on the play.
It's an outstanding catch. It's part of what I'm talking about having 2 good wide receivers. Stephon Diggs certainly one of them.
Later on this drive, 3rd and goal from the 2. Dalvin Cook up the middle, but stopped. Just a gain of 1. Mike Zimmer opting to go for it. 4th and goal from the 1.5. Cousins tries for the back of the end zone, but this one incomplete. And after the game, Russell Wilson praised his defense's big stop.
Yeah, I mean, that was huge, just how our defense was just battling. They really were special tonight. It was really cool just to see how we stayed together, and it was just great just to see that, just play after play, just guys making plays.
Just some beautiful football, and not the kind of football that everybody loves, but the kind of football that we love. And I bet Coach Zim, he thinks the same thing. It was a tough defensive day.
Coach loves it, Wendy. Coach loves it.
He loves it. Vikings hoping to cut the lead to 3. A 47-yard field goal is blocked. Bobby Wagner putting his hands on his own teammates to potentially help get over line. Initially a flag on the play, but the officials would pick it up. And Carroll does like that. He's okay with that.
Love that call, reverse.
Love that call. Ensuing Seahawks drive, 2nd and 8 from the 39. Wilson looking to pass, flushed out of the pocket, takes off for 40 yards. Not bad. How about this? Sets up the 3rd and goal. Chris Carson punches it in for the score. Under 3 minutes to play. And we have our first touchdown of the game. Seahawks go for 2. Successful. It's 14-0. Here's the nail in the coffin, so to speak. Cousins on the run, tries to throw it. No can do. Seahawks go on to win 21-7. And the Vikings struggle to get anything going offensively. And the Seattle defense, though, as I said, let's give them credit, came up big.
Yeah, I mean, Pete Carroll's got to be in the mix, for Coach of the Year. The job he's done with that young defense, and, redirecting that football team to become a run-first game. I mean, it bodes well for people remembering what you do in December, which Seattle Seahawks have done as good a job as anybody.
So they improved to 8-5, a firm grasp on the first wild card spot. Minnesota stays in the 2nd wild card spot despite the loss, but a trio of 6 and 7 teams are still in the hunt. The Rams and Saints have clinched, don't forget. Here's Kirk Cousins talking about what the Vikings offense has to do to stay in the postseason picture.
Certainly when you're not putting as many points on the board as you know you're capable of or you've shown in past games, it is disappointing. I think the added piece of the disappointment is when your defense is playing so well. Our defense, I feel, the last couple weeks or last several weeks really has played playoff football, high-level football, and put us in a position where, we really should and can be in the playoff conversation as a result of the way they're playing defense. And that if our offense would bring it the way we brought it in some of the earlier weeks of the season, we could be pretty dangerous.
Keep at it. Keep trying to find things that we're good at. We didn't score very many points tonight. Didn't score very many points last week. So, part of it is being better on 3rd downs. We haven't really done a good job there. Part of it's being better in the red zone. We had the ball on the 2-yard line, didn't score. So, you keep doing things like that, you're not going to score many points.
Unfortunately, we haven't put the whole complementary football together enough this season to really be the team that I think we know we're capable of, and that'll be the challenge these last 3 weeks. And I said it last Wednesday that was the challenge this week, and we didn't necessarily do that. So that'll be our focus these last 3 weeks, and if we can put it all together, I think there's kind of feeling where we're saying, hey, watch out. If we put it together, it could be special.
It must be a case of the Mondays for the $84 million man, Kirk Cousins. He fell to 0-7 in his career on Monday Night Football, the worst record by any starting quarterback on Monday Night Football, according to our friends at Elias. following cousins Archie Manning and Joe Namath, who are both 0-6 in their careers on Monday night as well. So we got the panic button out, not to say we won't need it, but just in case. I'll say this: panic or patience when it comes to the Vikings' massive investment in Kirk Cousins.
Anyone?
No? Anyone?
I'll lead us off.
Go ahead.
Okay.
If you want to.
You want the button?
I'm not going to push it.
Okay,
Okay.
Patience.
I'm definitely going patience. And, you know, I've seen this offense before. They've got the tight end, as Tim mentioned. They've got the two wideouts. They're capable of passing the ball. And they've shown that this season with Kirk Cousins. I think the reality is, you know, the biggest mismatch in football is drop back passing with the athleticism of defensive fronts versus the offensive front. And the teams that kind of got it going on offensively are, you know, are teams that are able to run the football and play action offense. The hardest thing for a defensive player is recognizing the difference between run and pass, and you have to try and slow them down. And I don't think that's all on Kirk Cousins. I think a little bit of design. We'll see about that moving forward if firing John DeFilippo was the answer. And the offensive line. You have to be able to block whether you're trying to run or pass.
I'm going to go patient as well. I think a lot of people made a big deal about, you know, the money Kirk's making. He's being paid as a starter.
It's historic, right?
Yeah, I mean, but it's not like he's the highest paid player at the position. So I mean, the reality is that guys are paid a lot to play the position at a starter level. He's been productive at the position. You can certainly find throws where you can make a better throw. Could have made a better one to Kyle Rudolph on the 4th down play last night. But a quarterback of his style and his skill set needs help up front. And most guys do. He's not any different, and he's not getting enough. And so I think in that regard, I think people need to be patient on him.
Yeah, I'm with you guys. I'm going to be patient on Kirk Cousins. I mean, this is, if the issue was in any way tension, right? If the issue was tension on the coaching staff, then it's conceivable that the relief of that tension could help on its own. That maybe that people relax a little bit and that helps. They are still occupying a playoff spot. If the season ended today, they are in the playoffs at the 6th seed. So as poorly as it's gone, they're still in great position. And Tim, you mentioned earlier, I mean, you know, they have a running back they can lean on. More than one, actually, running back they can lean on. They have 2 very good wide receivers. They have a reliable tight end. Things are in place there. If they can find a way to mitigate the protection problems, which maybe they can. Maybe Seattle blueprint that they saw last night offers them an opportunity. Hey, we're going to pound the ball and run it and keep guys off of our quarterback. Then I think there's hope for them for the rest of the season. I definitely think there's hope for Cousins for the rest of his contract. I don't think we're saying in year 1 that that's a bad investment.
I would just add this, too. I've been around guys that play the position. Some guys are finger pointers and some guys aren't. Yeah. And when you're under this type of pressure and your coordinator gets fired and you're kind of underachieving by most people's accounts, having a guy that's not a finger pointer is important. And he's not. And he most definitely is not.
I think that is a very astute point. You're right. Minnesota also has struggled against good teams. They are winless in 6 games this year against teams that entered the game with a winning record, 0-5-1. But again, if the playoffs started today, they'd be there. On the other side, we don't want to take anything away from that Seattle defense because they have exceeded expectations, I would argue. And here's what they had to say about the road ahead.
You know, if you want to be a championship team, you got to find ways to win, even when it doesn't look pretty. You know, and we've had a lot of great games. We've had some tough, and we found ways to get through it. And tonight, you know, we can stay the course. We kept battling, we kept battling, we kept battling, and we thought it was going to be a crazy game anyway, in a different way. But sure enough, we were able to get a huge win. And what we really care about and what we love is winning.
Well, I don't feel that there's been anything accomplished yet. You know, I'm happy that we're playing good ball. We know how we want to do it. We're in the mentality that we've been in other years when we've really finished really well and we've done done some damage going on. It's available to us. It's there now, and I'm really excited about that. But I'll talk to me after we've accomplished something. We ain't done nothing yet.
Listen, we spent ample time, and understandably so, talking about the departure, if you will, of that Legion of Boom. And there was a reason they were dominant for so many seasons. Listen, this group is young. They are scrappy. We don't know their names, or at least we didn't at the outset of the season. They have played exceptionally well.
And I go back to, I visited their training camp in August and talked to Pete Carroll. And, you know, he's just like this when you talk to him. Like, he says, you know, it's okay. People think we don't know what we're doing. We know what we're doing. It's going to be okay. The culture won't change. The personnel will change, but all this kind of thing. So they had a plan in place. This is an organization that, as much as any in the league, is really about development. And they believe that the players they have in their system are going to be better in their second year than they were in their first, and better in their third year than they were in their second. And it sounds like that's, oh, every team's like that. But they really do practice what they preach. They believed they were reloading with players that had been in their system and were ready to take on larger roles on that defense. And so far, so good. I mean, at this point, you know, they look like they're going to make the playoffs in a year where I think most people looked and said, well, this is going to be a year where they take a huge step back.
I don't think you can overlook the development portion of what they do, Coach, either. A lot of teams actually don't do that and don't build franchises that way, and this has served them very, very well over the years.
Yeah, I think Pete Carroll and the Seattle Seahawks organization do as good a job as that as anybody. You know, you look at Frank Clark, you know, you got some young guys there, but let's not forget Bobby Wagner, which I think is the glue. In any championship or, you know, winning organization like Seattle, you've got to have glue players. And Russell Wilson on offense, Bobby Wagner on defense, you know, he held that together, and he actually motivates those young guys every day. As long as their staff's done a great job as well. You know, Pete understands what it takes to win this league, especially coming down the stretch in December.
Yeah, and I think, you know, when you look at it, you mentioned something a couple weeks ago about, you know, certain teams, you know, getting faster on defense. When you look at that defense, what they've done is they've added fast players to that defense. And so then when you look at a defense like that, highlighter uniforms are not in that building.
As hard as it is to look at.
With that crowd noise, all of a sudden you look there and you're like, man, these guys are flying around. They're getting off the ball. And I just, you know, think that's the type of thing that is almost, you know, it's almost contagious for a group. They just start playing with confidence and trusting each other. And I think that's part of why, you know, people make such a big deal about playing at home and crowd noise and feeding off energy and stuff like that. It felt like it was, you know, it was on display last night.
Listen, sometimes what you don't know, right? You don't know you're not supposed to be this good. Well, then, hey, let's go out and play. Okay, so it's going pretty well in Seattle. The same cannot be said for the situation in Oakland. It's been a tough season from start to almost finish. And then yesterday, the Oakland Raiders fired their general manager, Reggie McKenzie. It was effective immediately. He'd been the GM since 2012, under contract through the 2021 NFL Draft as part of a 4-year extension that he signed in 2016. Here's John Gruden's reaction.
This is all, you know, somewhat surprising. There have been a lot of speculation and a lot of rumor coming out of here since early in the season. You don't know what's real, what's smoke, what's fire. You really don't. But we have made a change, and we have to respond. I can't exactly answer why the change was made last night, but changes were made. And we got to continue to fight and continue to build this team back, and that's what we're going to do.
I mean, come on. Come on. Listen, this is the worst-kept secret in the league. I think everybody expected, I'm sure Reggie McKenzie as well, that there would be some type of departure at the end of this year. But John Gruden, to say that he's surprised when, you know, they paid him, what, $100 million over 10 years to be the man in charge is a little absurd. A lot absurd.
Yes, I mean yeah. Look, everyone knows that John Gruden is pulling the strings there in Oakland and making the decision,
which is okay, by the way.
Which is fine, but for some reason he doesn't want everyone to think that, or he believes that it's important in press conferences to suggest otherwise. You're right. I mean, for weeks, for months, the expectation has been Oakland would make a change. We thought they'd wait till after the season with Reggie McKenzie and put in a GM that you know, I don't know if you can say John's going to pick the GM. But A, that may be the case, and B, even if it's not, it's definitely going to be someone that they believe can work with John. So I think that's the plan going forward in Oakland, has been for a long time. Reggie McKenzie, a good man, well-respected. I'm sure they didn't want to just, you know, do wrong by him and wash him right out at the beginning of the year, but it seems like for some reason they came up 3 weeks short of doing it, you know, in the best possible way.
And again, there's no surprise here. I mean, you know, John Gruden was not surprised by this. And that, again, okay. I'm not sure why we can't just own that.
I don't know. To be honest with you, I feel like it's in some ways strange, you know, like, you know, like maybe casual observers don't understand, you know, what's actually happening there. Or I don't. And, and I think in some ways, like, is it a big deal? No, it's probably not a big deal. I would just say this. I feel like it's in...
Which part's not a big deal?
Like, listen, Gruden doing this, he's clearly not telling the truth about it.
Right,
that's
okay.
fine. But
that's
I feel like, I feel like in some ways the reason I don't like it is I feel like it's disrespectful to McKenzie. You know what I mean? Like,
I would 100% agree with that.
I feel like it's unfair to him in that, listen, the reality is he drafted Mark Cooper. He drafted Derek Carr. He drafted Khalil Mack. It's not like every selection he ever made was a poor one, and it's why the Raiders aren't a good football team right now. And so in some ways, I feel bad for the work and job that he's done there, you know, to kind of have it happen this way.
Yeah, I feel bad for anybody being fired. It just happened to me, you know, not that long ago. But, you know, I think, you know, that John Gruden knows what's going on. I don't know if he makes all those. I don't really understand the mechanics of their organization totally. I'm sure he's aware. I think everybody on the outside, me included, is aware that there's change in Oakland and going to be big changes moving forward. You know, it may have been something they wanted to keep quiet. It got out, and, you know, now might as well just finish it off. But, you know, there's going to be a lot of changes moving forward, you know, on that roster and everywhere in that organization.
Yeah, there will be. And the question is, at what point will they just say there will be and there are changes, and we'll just go down that route, but not yet. From the Miami Miracle to the Music City Miracle to our very own Randy Moss. We'll dive into the archives for the best lateral plays in NFL history.
The kick by Boswell. He slipped and fell and the ball is loose. Oh my goodness gracious. And the Raiders celebrate a real big upset.
Plus, a missed field goal may mean you miss the playoffs while we're panicking on Pittsburgh.